I'm Wes Potts.
I'm Alex Kahneman.
And today we're just it's our third episode.
Episode 3.
So yeah. Alex, how have you been today?
Pretty good. Just woke up.
Alex had a little bit of a trouble waking up today.
Yeah, I did.
But that's the whole point of this, I guess.
Right, exactly. Waking the Kraken.
So have you seen any interesting videos or anything recently?
Well, I've got my, list of notes, and the first thing I have here is, what are Japanese shenanigans?
Oh, yeah, we saw that video
Yeah, we were
yesterday.
watching that video about all the new Netflix movies that are coming out, and there's one where all the characters are I guess it's I can't remember the name of it, but it's a manga. Well, it's like a live-action adaptation of a manga, and the announcer literally says, Japanese shenanigans ensue. And I'm still trying to figure out what the fuck that even is.
It could possibly be anything from it could be a number of things. There's a lot of things in Japan.
Yeah, right?
It's is there a bunch of really overacted scenes? That could be it. Although I feel like that could be any country. Tommy Wiseau did it in America with The Room.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, would it be things involving sushi?
Yes, I would imagine that would have to be something along the lines,
every
right?
one of these shots involves sushi.
Or maybe Japanese shenanigans is just the layman's term for anything that happens in Japan.
That's good. Yeah. Anything that's a shenanigans in Japan is Japanese shenanigans.
Yeah. Or maybe it's the restaurant. Maybe it's only single iterations of the restaurant shenanigans that live in Japan.
But specifically for Japan. I wonder what Japanese people would think American shenanigans are.
That's a good question.
They're and then they eat cheeseburgers and bang bang shoot guns everywhere or something like that.
Pretty much.
Because I did ask that question one time to one of my friends. She was from Spain, and I asked her. I was like, so what do Spanish people think the American stereotype is over in Spain?
Mm-hmm.
I already knew the answer. I just wanted to have her say it.
Yeah.
So she's like, we think that you eat cheeseburgers all the time, and you dress like cowboys, and you all live on a farm. And I was like, okay, cool. And she's like, what do you think are the stereotypes for Spaniards? And me being me, I just go, well, we like to think that you like to come into other people's countries, take all their gold, and murder the population.
Yeah. Oh, the Spanish.
I've got one. It could be a fun little game too. I read this on Reddit the other day and I thought it was really good. If the world, if every country in the world were a high schooler, who would go to who with prom?
Oh, that's interesting. If every country in the world was a high schooler.
I mean, I think it's safe to say that Australia and New Zealand seem pretty buddy.
Yeah, right.
I don't know if they hate each other. I mean, in Flight of the Conchords, they pretend to hate each other, but I think they're actually pretty cool with each other.
Yeah, right.
So,
That's an interesting one, man.
But I'm trying to think of other ones, maybe, Great Britain. Who do you think would go with Great Britain?
Who would go with Great Britain?
Because that's a really popular kid, I feel like. I mean, they used to, be the king of the school, and, they had the whole...
Right.
They used to have, a big posse of other, now, high schoolers.
In Great Britain, they would just end up going with France, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would assume, is they would go with France, but, maybe stare at the United States all night.
Yeah, right.
They'd be, that longing look every once in a while over there. And then that, song by Cyndi Lauper that Time After Time plays.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
Let's see, who else? I don't think that North Korea would probably go stag.
Yeah, probably. North Korea wouldn't be able to get anybody, and if they did, it would be someone like fucking Cuba.
Yeah, or Iran.
Or Iran.
I think Iran would they would ask Iran on a date, but also Iran would go on one Iran would dance with them once, but like try not to.
I don't know. Yeah, and plus, like, you know, like, Iran is one kind of manipulative, and like South Korea is like a whole other type.
North Korea.
I'm
South
sorry,
Korea.
yeah, North Korea. Yeah, sorry, best Korea. Yeah, North Korea is this whole other type of manipulative. Like, it's like I don't really want to. I don't want to see either of those people with anybody at the prom.
I also think that like Iran is more popular than North Korea.
Well,
'Cause Iran has a lot of, but like we may like as the United States, we may not like them as like our governments might not get along very well. But I feel like like Yemen and other countries, like that's always a big deal. They're like, and then Iran might like get to them and stuff. And I feel like Iran wouldn't be able to get to anyone if everyone's like, "Fuck Iran, they're weirdos."
Yeah, right.
Like.
Yeah, that's what everyone does with North Korea, right?
Yeah.
Everyone just goes, God, they have weird haircuts.
One of the ones that I thought. Let's see. Like, okay, so we've obviously got England or Great Britain and France going together. We've got New Zealand and Australia going together. Who do you think like? Who do you think would go? Do you think China would go with the United States?
No. I mean, actually, yeah. Yeah, China and the United States.
China and the United States would go together.
Yeah. We've got too much money tied up in each other. Like we've had like a long-standing relationship that like we're kind of like in the middle of. We couldn't just back out of it, you know.
What if it's like a like China and like the United States dads or like mom and dads made them go together because they're business partners. They're like, well, you obviously you're going with like China, and they're like,
right?
oh,
Like
man,
arranged.
I wanted to go with Great Britain or Canada.
Right.
Canada's so nice, Mom. We don't care about. They don't produce as enough. Like, what do they have? Beavers? Like,
Yeah, right. And they like argue all night over whether they should go get burgers or just like chicken.
Yeah. Let's see. Like, obviously, India and Pakistan are not going to go together. They're going to try to go with someone completely the opposite. Who would India go with? That's the thing. Is like who? Maybe Sri Lanka.
No, India would definitely be forced to go with somebody else.
Yeah.
India wouldn't get a choice.
They wouldn't get a.
No. Maybe India and like Brazil.
Yeah, I was thinking Brazil and Portugal would go together because they're like one of the only countries that could talk to each other.
That's true. Yeah. Okay. Who would go with Antarctica?
Well, Antarctica's not a country.
I guess that's fair. That's a continent.
It's like that student that like everyone kind of keeps hush hush because they died in a car accident.
Right. Oh yeah.
It's like it's a known entity, but it's just not alive anymore.
Yeah, no, it just swept under the ice.
All right, so that was a fun tangent. I thought that was a good one. The other day, actually, speaking of like, the other day I was watching a video. It was actually really good. It was kind of a documentary setup, but it made the wheels in my head start ticking. And actually, the funny thing is, I found it on Snapchat.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I never use Snapchat for those like extra video things, like where like they have like, is Kim Kardashian like wearing this scantily clad thing, or like. Which members of the Hills are still alive? Or
right.
Are you doing your makeup right? But I saw this one.
Check out which one of these actors
actually likes blue Slurpees.
What?
From 7-Eleven.
These 12 actors used to like blue Slurpees when they were children, and now they're fat, ugly people.
Yeah, and now they're famous.
Yeah.
Like, Slurpees make you famous.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, like I was it was okay. So you've seen that documentary, like Cropsy and Killer Legends.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure I've forced you to watch those.
Oh yeah.
For those of you who don't know what it is, it's a movie. There are two different movies, and Cropsy is set up in like it takes place in New Jersey, and it's about this like the idea of the stalker in the woods that's actually turns out to be a crazy person that escaped from a mental asylum, and where that kind of became an urban legend within a lot of people in New Jersey, and then it turns out that it had a little bit of validity to it or behind it. And Killer Legends does the same thing, except in like a vignette of 5 different kind of things where it's a bunch of different urban legends, such as the guy with the hook for hands or the poison Halloween candy and stuff, and go, okay, well, where did these urban legends come from? And So the same people who did this, the directors and stuff who did this, did a small little thing for Snapchat around Halloween, and it was about that. What is it? The creepypasta. You've heard of Jeff the Killer?
Yeah.
Okay, so like Jeff the Killer.
For those of you who don't know.
Who don't know. Right, if you're not internet savvy and obsessed with terrifying things like me, which, in all honesty, this is only episode 3. You should probably still be interested in things that I'm interested in. We're not that popular.
Hopefully not.
So Jeff the Killer is this creepypasta about this kid who was, like, picked on, and I guess, like, some other kids threw, like, bleach in his face, and it, like, just really did a number on his skin, and then he went psychotic and desired revenge and cut his eyelids off and like carved a smile on his face, and he goes around murdering people around the United States now, and he's this weird cult figure that no one can really figure out who he actually is. He just knows he's known as Jeff the Killer, and in a couple of the creepypastas most of the time he's standing over someone whispering, "Go to sleep."
Yeah.
But they were talking about like where the idea of this entity is, and does the internet there in fact lie the like new urban legends of the future. Like we always hear the urban legends of, oh, I know somebody who had this, whose cousin had this strange and unusual event happen to them. But they were talking about like with the advent of the internet, especially like social media sites and stuff, you can basically write whatever you want, and then you go, okay, well, yeah, so this person, I don't know if they're telling the truth or if they're not telling the truth. Like, these could be a part of the subculture now where it's like, does an urban legend does it come out of that?
Okay, so does an urban legend come out of, like, not only the truths, but also, like, the lies and kind of rumors?
And what do people believe? Because the thing is, like, in that one documentary, Finding Slender Man, they were talking about how these like 11-year-old kids that like killed this girl absolutely 100% thought that Slender Man was real.
Yeah.
We as adults know that Slender Man is not a real entity because he's made up and he came out of a contest and stuff for creepypasta. But as an 11-year-old, you think it's real, and that's really where they were talking about like the belief. Like the internet's so new that these like 11-year-olds, these 10-year-olds, these like 9-year-olds that have iPads can access all this information, get obsessed with it, and think it's real, just like they stopped believing in Santa Claus 3 or 4 years before.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I think what it like comes down to is like, you know, like urban myths and legends are kind of like conspiracy theories, like not in like as in what they are, but the way they feel. Like, when you hear a conspiracy theory, there's, like, something really, like, enticing and kind of, like, beautiful about it.
Right.
Because it's like, oh, man, what if? Oh. And it just gets me excited because it's like, even though if I know it's not true, I like entertaining it because it's, like, a cool idea. And the same thing with the urban myth and legends. I think, like, you know, like, even though I don't really, like, believe a lot of it, there's like certain ones that are like definitely rooted in truth.
Well, yeah, like Russian Science Experiment or something like that. That one's terrifying. That one was wonderfully written, but like
I mean, and so like when it comes down to it, just I think really like the belief and the kind of like craze that comes with some urban myths and legends, like especially with like kids, if like they can like, you know, miscomprehend the internet so easily. I mean, like first off, I don't even know like how kids even have like enough other kids to talk to kids about Slender Man and like decide to go kill somebody. Like how do you see more than like 30 kids when you're in like kindergarten? When you're I don't know, how old are you? Like when you're 11, what
like,
grade are you in?
You're probably okay. Let's see. You're 11, so you're what, like fourth, fifth grade.
Yeah,
I think.
Fifth grade, sixth grade at the most.
Yeah, fifth grade, sixth grade. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, so at that point in my life, I'm finally starting to become, like, aware of things around me a little bit. But I didn't, I wasn't convinced by anything that I should go kill somebody, and there was no like myth or of course, I don't know. I was a kid. I don't remember everything.
There also wasn't any myth, I think, that I can really think of. Like all the myths I remember, such as like Bloody Mary or stuff like that, they were going to kill you if you did the thing. Like you don't just kill other people and get to like a reward.
Yeah, right.
So like I think that was the other thing where it was like in the Slender Man myth that they were talking about on that documentary. Which is completely off subject from Jeff the Killer, but anyway, like, but in that they were talking about how like you have to murder someone for Slender Man to like take you to his like according to the girls, like you had to murder someone for Slender Man to take you to his abode to like live out the rest of his days and be his henchman, where basically like you go around helping Slender Man do things.
Oh, okay.
Which sounds creepy in itself. Like you're gonna live in a giant mansion with a guy with no face that's really tall forever. Mm-hmm. It sounds like a weird, like, Addams Family-esque version of heaven.
Or maybe it has to do with the fact that, like, all children are essentially just, like, really drunk people when they're born, and they're just, like, getting less and less drunk for 18 years. Like, maybe that's why. Like, if I was really drunk and somebody was like, hey, you gotta kill this guy to do the thing, I'd be like, yeah, let's do it. I'd be very excited.
Drunk kids, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so maybe that's what it is.
Just
maybe
drunk kids.
Yeah,
they have problems.
Yeah, they haven't developed enough not alcohol in their blood.
So I saw this thing the other day. Once again I was on Reddit. I do this occasionally when I'm bored. Get on Reddit. But there was this thing that I was...
What a weird thing to do.
Yeah, what a weirdo, dude.
Everybody make fun of Wes for getting on Reddit every once in a while when he's bored.
He's probably just a dumbass.
Slash oddly satisfying.
I was going through things. That was good. We should do more of those. That we should have. But like the thing is that I found this one collective subreddit, and it was called Incels. Have you heard of Incels?
Yeah. Incels. Okay.
It sounds like a bunch of fat fucking nerds that are... I think it stands for, like, involuntarily celibate?
It must.
Because, like, I think that's what I read on Urban Dictionary, at least, because I was like, what is an incel? And so...
Okay, so, yeah, I was watching the Dan Harmon thing about this. So apparently, like...
Oh, was this the one that was on Harmontown the other day?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It's called Women Think Gazpacho Are Creepy. And it's about this article that this incel wrote, and it's Dan Harmon trying to understand what it is. But essentially, like, they're people who, I guess you could consider them to be, like, unfuckable.
Okay, so, like, yeah, okay.
And then... those people, instead of being upset about being that way, decide to take pride in the fact that nobody wants to have sex with them, and then just say that they've chosen to be that way their whole life, and they get really like mean and oppressive against like women, apparently.
Right, they turn into like misogynist assholes.
Yeah, right.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and that's an incel.
Because I mean, that's what I got off of their Reddit too. Is like there's a bunch of things that they would say that you're just like, whoa, dude, that's not okay at all.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's something that I don't know, you know, like, I am not involuntarily celibate, thank God. I guess that means I'm not, like, super ugly or, like, mentally challenged or one of the other many things.
I don't know, I think, like, the thing is with the, like, involuntarily, like, celibate, it's just a way of saying virgin, but there are also the people, it's not really, like, I feel like the problem that I have with it is more of the idea that they're just, like, I deserve sex, but I'm not getting it. And so now I'm going to be mad as shit at people because they're not giving me sex.
Yeah, right. I mean, of course, that's also, like, that has to come from just, like, the drunk babies of today, you know? Like,
hashtag drunk babies.
Hashtag drunk babies. Like, what it comes down to for me is, like, anytime, like, a new, like, group of people... like this comes about, and it's like kind of like an internet thing where it's like only this, like, these people only exist around, like, I don't know, like the only time anytime they just kind of like boil up out of like 4chan and Reddit or, you know, whatever other depths of the internet there are, like, it always just feels like it's like these are just a bunch of kids who are trying to figure out what the fuck they are, and like also like the internet's
some
a
of these
thing.
people are grown ass men though too. It's not just like a kid. It stands for involuntarily celibate.
Right on.
And apparently I can't visit. You must be invited to visit this community. I can't go into it anymore.
Aww.
So I have to. That in itself leads to a lot of questions. Do I have to like prove that I haven't been fucked? Or, like,
Yeah, right.
Like, what do they do? They're like, okay, send us a picture. Yeah, you look pretty unfuckable.
That's
they
hilarious.
even have the okay. So here's the other thing. They have incels is private. But they even have a subreddit of a subreddit called Incels Without Hate. And here's the tagline for the subreddit is a subreddit for people who have struggled to obtain sex and intimacy. Unlike incels, we strictly forbid hate and promote a more positive and helpful community. So then the incels are like, okay, people don't want to fuck us, but like, let's not be mad about it. Like,
Yeah, right.
And all women can't be creepy or mean.
Yeah, right. Yeah, just because women think gazpacho is creepy, and they also think you're creepy, but you like gazpacho doesn't necessarily mean that you're not creepy.
I really want to just see if I can get invited to incels, just so we can like splinter stuff. But then someone's gonna catch on that I'm doing it, and I'll get banned.
Yeah, that's true. Man, oh, you never know. It might work out all right.
Maybe.
It might work out all right.
I don't get it. Like, that's the thing. Okay, like, yeah, it's just so weird. But yeah, if two women said that gazpacho was creepy, and then I like gazpacho, and women think that I'm creepy, then their opinion on gazpacho means nothing. Is a really stupid transitive property.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is what Dan Harmon had like read out and said. I remember on that video or on the podcast.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I mean, he's right. He was right on that. Where he was just like, yeah, you know, that's an incredibly stupid idea or dumb. I don't know. Okay, I want to try. Oh, give me something to rail about. I want to see if I can make a jump like they did.
Something to rail about. Okay. How about something that makes something like it's Wes's Jimmy's Russell.
I mean, we've already established on this show that I'm not too keen on ancient aliens.
That, you know what? I have not really heard this whole spiel. Let's do this.
You want to hear the ancient alien spiel?
Yeah, why don't you like ancient aliens?
Okay. So
Come on, I already said they're sexy. Conspiracy theories are sexy. Everybody wants aliens to be real.
I mean, like, because, you know, everyone's always going for the conspiracy theorist of the aliens guy. He just has so many, like, supermodels that he's constantly dating. Okay, so I think that it's a fun conspiracy theory. I think that it like has a lot. You can have a lot of fun with it and a lot of fun speculating. I think it's a great science fiction. The thing that I don't like about ancient astronaut theory is it's way too easy. I feel like so like you have something you don't understand, and then you go, oh well. Humans are stupid. They've always existed stupider than we are now because now we have iPhones, and iPhones are the pinnacle achievement of humankind. So obviously people in the past were dumb because they played with rocks.
Right.
And so the idea for me is there's things such as like the Library of Alexandria was destroyed by the Romans. A lot of those things only had like one book in them. So since books catch on fire and people learn from books, you can't really say that, like, in my opinion, you can't just really gloss over everything with being like, oh yeah, aliens taught us all our great technology. Like, how did the pyramids get built? Aliens. How did, like, where did the Baghdad battery come from? Aliens. How did they get that computer system to track the stars in those Roman boats? Oh, aliens. Like, and how come on, like, in the tip of Africa and also in Mexico, people built pyramids? And you're like, maybe it's just the easiest structure in geometry to actually, like, make. Like, it's just take a big base and keep stacking it until you can't stack it any taller upon itself, you fucking idiots.
Yeah, right.
Like, so that's the thing. Is like, and people use this all the time. Like, they'll use the, well, did you, because I was actually debating this last night with one of my other podcasters, Hamilton. I was talking to him, and he was like, well, yeah, he's like, but what about, like, in South America where they have those rocks that are carved so perfectly that you can't even put a piece of paper through them. And I was like, here's the thing, man. I was like, that's Inca. And I was like, and the Incas don't have a written language. They had a language that was based off of a bunch of knots.
Yeah, right.
And that's how they would relay messages. I was like, but they're probably not chronicling like how they do all of their architecture. You probably learned that underneath like it was probably a word of mouth, like an oral tradition that you did.
Right.
And I was like, and so I'm not saying that it's 100% completely implausible that aliens helped people build things or maybe the aliens did everything. But what I am saying is that it is highly unlikely that that is the case. Or most or everything that has been glossed over with this like ancient aliens is highly unlikely.
Yeah.
You have to give people a little bit of credit where credit's due. We've lost the idea of things, and I can even use that like whenever it comes to like Roman concrete is a lot stronger than the concrete that we use today.
Right.
They didn't know how Roman concrete was made for 1,500 years after the fall of Rome. We just figured it out like a couple years ago on how Roman concrete works. So if we were to look at that in a time scan, we could be like, well, how did the Romans know how to make stronger concrete? Well, obviously an alien came down and taught them how to make better concrete.
That's the scapegoat.
And so I'm like, yeah, it becomes a substitute for if you don't want to explain how something is. Like, it's the concept of I'm always right as believing in ancient aliens and you're always wrong because you can't disprove me.
It's kind of like, how come even though I'm nice to everybody, there's still people that are mean to me?
Yeah.
God works in mysterious ways. Like, it's the same kind of, like, cop-out answer. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, it's a very, like, I think anything that's too easy. And history isn't that easy at all.
Also, I could also agree where, like, it's kind of a mistake to, like, learn about, like, what's going on in history and to just assume that those people are stupider than you.
Right.
And just be like, there's no way they could have done this. Like, it had to have been aliens. It's like, what? It's like, okay, first off, like just because the story of Atlantis exists and we have evidence of other, like, cities that are underwater, it's like, you know, like, the potential for us just having been smart enough to do it exists. And it's like, quit. Like, I understand. It's like, I would much rather see someone explore Atlantis or underwater cities and trying to talk about ancient civilizations.
Right.
That were advanced way before they would say it had to be aliens.
Well, and here's the other thing. Like, okay, so, like, Jules Verne. Let's take Jules Verne. He made, like, a bunch of different science fiction style novels. Like, you know, what is it, 50,000 Leagues Under the Sea? It has the Nautilus in it, which we're on.
Yeah, right.
But also, like, he talks about men going to the moon and stuff like that. But he wrote all these in the 1800s. And when he wrote all of these, no one was going to go to the moon until 1969. And so the thing is, if you believe that, there's also a conspiracy against that. But, like, so the thing is with that, like, if you look at science fiction before 1969, there's people flying all over the galaxies. They're hanging out on all these different planets and meeting all these different alien races and stuff like that. And let's say, like, 2,000 years from now, someone finds an old Jules Verne novel or an old H.G. Wells novel or something like that and be like, look, people have been going to, like, they were going to the, like, far corners of the galaxy long before, like, before we knew. How did they do that? And they'd be like, aliens. And you go, no, people just had a really, really fucking good imagination. And they said, okay, if I'm going to go out into space, I probably need a machine because I can't fly with my stupid arms.
Yeah, right.
Like, so they're like, oh, so they made it just kind of like, it's this mockery of probably how, like, to the people in the future, Jules Verne will sound overly simplified. Like, of just being like, oh, they had a machine and they pulled a lever and then it shot them into the air. Like, but I mean, like, the thing is, the most essence of it is you have the idea of the machine. And for, like, future ancient aliens, they'll be like, well, aliens came down and taught all these people how to do it because they were flying around, and then I guess we just didn't do it for a while because why didn't we conquer all the planets?
Why didn't we conquer all the planets?
I know. Endless empire. That's a really good Roman idea.
Endless, infinite empire.
Infinite empire.
Or, I'm sorry, infinite conquest.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's my problem with the basis. I could go into it for a long, long time. I even have Chariots of the Gods in my... I've read it. Like, that because I was just like, okay, it's funny, it was a nickel, but I'm also going to buy it.
because I want to know, because someday I want to be able to. There's going to be someone down the road that, and there already has been, but there are going to be more people down the road that be like, well, what about aliens, man?
Yeah, right. What about aliens? Okay, how about this? Okay, so like going off of aliens, let's talk about something that I feel like a lot of people have an opinion about, and it's something that you and I've talked about a little bit, but I don't think I've ever really asked you. Do you think the moon landing footage is real? If not, give me a reason or two why. If so, give me a reason or two why.
Me, I do. I think that we actually probably went to the moon.
Okay, see, well, here's what's interesting to me is I think a lot of people would agree that we may have gone to the moon, but may have faked the video. And I think that's a big misconception that like a lot of people throw at me is they'll say like the moon landing footage is fake because they couldn't take a camera up with them, or because the footage that they brought back got ruined. Or,
but why fake it then? Like, if you go to the moon, like, why fake it?
Right, and that's my thought process: is why fake it?
Yeah.
But what's like your main reasoning
for why we went to the moon?
Yeah, or no, just for like saying that. Yeah, no, we definitely did that.
Oh, because I took the blue pill.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
No, I think that like obviously like space travel is expensive. And I think the thing is, like, at the time the Cold War was going on, we needed something to beat the Russians. The Russians kept beating us. They got the first satellite. They got the first man in space. Like,
Cosmonaut.
We needed to beat the Russians in something. And so, really, what's the closest thing we could do would go to the moon.
Yeah, right.
And I think it was just a matter of, like, national pride so much so. And I guess that could be also used against me for, like, why we faked it. But although I have read, or I've watched the documentary on, like, if you watch all the Kubrick films at this particular thing and stuff like that, you'll see that he totally faked the moon landing. He says it in The Shining.
Yeah, right.
I just think there's not enough evidence yet for me to go with the idea that.
Right.
And I think that's it. It's the lack of evidence on the counter, lack of valid evidence, like lack of evidence that doesn't just sound like the ramblings of a madman. Like if someone that like it's like Kubrick himself got like if the journal got released that Kubrick's like fake the moon landing today, fuck those bitches.
Yeah, right.
Or like even like cameramans or like people that were well known. It just sounds like a giant conspiracy theory. And also the thing is like if we've been to the moon, why would we fake the moon landing? I get that we haven't gone back and that may be the sore subject on a lot of people and stuff like that, but that's got to cost a shit ton of money to go to another planet, land on it, take off from that planet too without a base, and then like go home.
Yeah, right. And it's like, plus, like, because this is interesting to me, because I absolutely 100% believe that footage is real.
Right.
And, like, and that we did go. And, like, I've heard all sorts of arguments for why we couldn't have and all this stuff. But there's just one thing that I wanted to bring up that I thought was really interesting about it, is that if you look at the video footage, and you look at the shadows, all of the shadows are always, like, perfectly parallel to one another.
Gotcha.
And there's only like one way that can happen, because there's a thing called light diffusion. It's what happens when the sun hits our atmosphere.
Right.
You know, the light hits it, and instead of the sky continuing to just look black with a giant sun in the sky, it turns blue. You know,
right.
And that's why we have a sky. But
the moon has no atmosphere.
But the moon has no atmosphere, so the sun's light rays don't get dispersed before they hit it. So they're literally coming over 96 million miles.
Yeah.
Maybe it's 96 million. But like over that course of time, those light waves have had enough time to where like there's no diffusion whatsoever. Almost all of them are perfectly parallel. So the shadows on the moon are perfectly parallel. And here's the issue with this is the only way to get that effect is to have a light source that is that far away.
Right.
So because you just couldn't, and even if you did do that, in atmosphere, the lighting effect wouldn't be the same just because we have diffusion.
Yeah.
So the only way you could have achieved that same effect would have been by buying hundreds, probably thousands of lasers to use as stage lighting or set lights. And it's like, And literally in the 1960s, when they were trying to go to the moon, like lasers were some of the most expensive science technology at the time, and a lot of them were this like bigger than supercomputers, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like, so it literally would have been less expensive to
go to the
actually go to the fucking moon,
Right. Okay. Yeah.
than it would have been to fake the footage for it.
Did you see the other day? Okay, so there was a lot of people the other day that were talking about the stink that they didn't release everything with the JFK. Or a lot. They said they were going to release some more stuff with the JFK thing, but they didn't release all the nitty gritty things that everyone wants to read.
Oh, really?
But they did release something really interesting the other day.
Yeah.
I was watching. I heard about it on. I think it was on Vice. They were talking about how they released Osama bin Laden's personal journal from whenever they had raided his house and stuff like that. And I thought that was really interesting.
That is interesting.
They were talking about like one of his experiences in the West is whenever he went and stayed with a British family, and they took him to go see like Shakespeare's home, and he was like super not about Shakespeare's home, and like I guess that's like one of the things that led him to hate like maybe allegedly led him to hate the West. That's all they would tell us on the released part of it yet, but I think it would be really interesting to read.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, his journal, man.
Yeah,
Like that. I mean, that would just be like. That would almost have to be like a very surreal experience.
yeah. I think it also might drive me a little bit insane though too.
Yeah. To like reading about a guy like who hates our country, like planning attacks that you knew and lived and experienced happening before they happened.
Or just hates your collective culture. Like, I mean, like, all of Western culture, he's, like, super against. And,
Yeah.
like, you just be like, okay, like, it doesn't matter which way I step. Like,
Yeah, right. Man. Well, what, like, but so okay, wait. So there was stuff they were gonna release about JFK that they didn't
yeah,
release?
yeah. Well, they like, I think it was, like, back in, like, it was a couple of years ago, too. They were supposed to release some of it, but then they, like, pushed it back again.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, Trump or something had said he was going to release the papers on it. And they released some of it, but, like, they still had a lot of it redacted.
Oh.
And so it's kind of made a lot of people upset. They're like, it's literally been since the 60s. Even if there was things where it's like, unless it's like, you know, the CIA killed JFK for some reason. Like,
Yeah, right.
I was like, if Cuba killed them, or like the Russians killed him, or the mob killed him, like, no one's going to be mad anymore about that. They'd be like, oh, that was that country
You know, 50 years ago.
Yeah, like, so we can't really just go to war retrograde on someone for 50 years before.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No, you can't. Okay. Well, actually, I have a thing that I wanted to bring up. I've been working on this concept called resistance, and resistance is everything in my life that prevents me from doing the things that I want to do with my time.
Gotcha.
Everybody experiences this. Like, resistance is like, you know that you need to do your homework by Friday, right?
Right.
But instead you procrastinate and you wait, and then you do it all at the very last minute, and then you do it really sloppily, and you turn it in. Not like procrastinating where you still do it perfectly awesome at the last minute, and not just like...
I think that comes from a procrastinator's perspective.
I know. No. So I'm just... Well, okay, well then how about this? Another idea would be like, man, like I just really want to write today, but I just have writer's block. I can't think of anything. I'm just sitting here staring at a blank page. I like to call that kind of stuff resistance.
Right.
You know, any time where you're like you feel like your urge to be creative or to create is resisted, or just to even just go on with your life and just like be who you are. Like anytime you feel resistance in that.
Yeah.
Like it's something that I've like slowly been like trying to like refocus as like I'm making a conscious enemy out of it. Like if I feel myself being resisted to do something, I'll say, just because I'm being resisted, I have to go do it now.
Right.
And it's like things like doing the dishes. Like for me, like looking at a pile of dishes, I always go, I really could do that later. But as soon as I say I could do that later, if I have time to do it now, it's like I should just do it now and then get it done. It only takes like 10 minutes to wash some dishes.
Yeah,
Like,
things like that always take like way less time than you actually imagine. Like I
Exactly.
always imagine myself like washing things for like 30 minutes, and it's like normally like 10. And even if it is 30 minutes, I think I imagine it being way worse.
Wait, well, it's almost always like when your mom's like, you got to do the dishes. Like as a kid, you're like, not the dishes. It's like you have to do them for all of time.
I'm gonna miss all my telenovelas.
Yeah, right. But I just think it's a really important concept, especially for, people like us who, like, on a daily basis are trying to do something creative with their life and, be productive. And, like, being aware of, like, your typical resistances, I think, is really important. And I was wondering if you had any, like, if you could think of anything in your life that you feel like you just, like, struggle to get yourself to do, or, like, something that you think kind of hinders you in a way. Oh, yeah. And then maybe one of the ways you kind of, try to fight that.
It's all summed up in depression. So basically anything, well, obviously this podcast is great for that because that's what I do. I wake up in the morning because there's a point to it.
Right.
But when it comes down to other resistances and stuff, like, I think I procrastinate a lot on, like, eating myself healthier. I think, like, there's always that, it's like, oh, I need to eat better food, which means I need to allot time to make the food that I'm ingesting so I know what's in it. But there's all those moments where I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so tired. I just wish I could just not cook today and be like, I'm going to go buy a cheeseburger now. And that, like, is a terrible habit to get into and everything like that. You find yourself eating nothing but fast food for 5 days straight, and then you feel like fucking garbage.
Yeah, right.
And so, yeah, that's one of them. Like, waking up is definitely another one where, like, if I don't wake up by a certain time, I'm just going to be a bum and do nothing all day. Like, if I wake up after noon, I'm just going to be like, okay, well, you don't have to do anything else because, look, you already wasted half your day and you got to go to work in 6 hours and stuff.
Yep.
So, like, so, yeah, there's all those little hindrances. I need to start learning how to gauge an hour better. I think I used to know how to gauge an hour way better as a child. I was thinking about that the other day where I was like, I used to wake up every morning at 6 a.m, get myself ready, and be in school at 8. And I would go to school till 3. And though I was tired, I wasn't as tired as I am now. And now I'm like, I wake up way later a lot of times, and like I just don't do shit, and I don't feel productive. And then I would go to work after I would go to school. And so like that's why I'm just like, you were way busier when you were younger, and you still like found time to be happy and stuff like that. Like what would you do? Like,
I mean, that's the secret. I think is you have to be doing just constantly have something to do.
The idle hands is the devil's work concept.
Yeah. Like, because, well, I mean, it's like the more you're doing stuff and the more productive you are, like, the better you constantly feel. And so, like, the less you do and, like, the less productive you are, the worse you feel. And, like, the more you're encouraged to not do more. And it's like, so the more you're doing with your hands and, like, moving around and making stuff, making things happen, the better. Yeah.
Well, on that light and happy note, I think we're going to end it today and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us.
I'm Wes Potts.
I'm Alex Kahneman.
Have a good day.
Sleep.
Go to sleep.